1. Okay. Couple of points of note. Number 1, yes, you will have one facts A for the student. You may also have multiple facts B for the same student. Facts B will be done for each of the areas or activities. Now, what I will tell you is if you have 10 areas or activities during your day and there's problem behavior in each of those, look at and say, do those look like they're different? You're not going to prioritize all 10 of them unless you think that they're doing it for the same function in all areas. Does that make sense? Linda, you got a question?
You have a student who is multiple teachers. Would you
Yes.
try to get them all as a team, or would you try to interview them so you'd have multiple?
That's a political question more than a functional question. Here's why I say that. If you have a team that feels very safe, and you have 2 teachers, I mean, the first question is, could it be that one teacher deals with this better than the other, is more effective than the other, the behavior occurs more than the other in one setting? If you think it happens probably in both settings, then doing it together is probably fine. But if you think that there's a difference between the two of them, then it comes down to the safety, the emotional safety of the staff. Are they going to be comfortable talking about it in front of their colleague? And are they, is that going to be politically safe? But if there's a difference in 2 different settings, I want to do those 2 different settings individually. And a good example of that is a first grader I worked with who had team teachers. One teacher taught Monday and Tuesday, and the other taught Wednesday, Thursday, Friday one week, and then they switched, and the next week it was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday through Friday. And I'll tell you, the kiddo did fairly well with one teacher and did not do well at all with the other teacher. So in that case, I'm probably going to do those interviews separately because I don't want somebody to feel badly. Okay. One of the other questions on the form was under the problem behaviors under step 3, verbally inappropriate versus inappropriate language. I won't use, I guess I could just start reeling off what inappropriate language is, but I'm guessing that you know. Okay, so that's the content of the language. Verbally inappropriate could be the piece of, in the middle of class going, hey, what are we doing at recess? Right, it's not the right topic, maybe not the right volume level. It's out of place, it's inappropriate to the context, but does not necessarily include profanity or threats or anything like that. Okay. Did you find that that's fairly straightforward, that the structure of it is fairly straightforward to walk through? Any questions about the form or format? Okay. Yes?
One question we had is that if we're allowed to check off multiple things in step 3, multiple behaviors, then what would the describe your problem behavior at the bottom of the box?
Say that again.
So we were talking we would check off probably multiple behaviors.
Under step 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Then, so to describe the problem behavior, would we just be listing everything we checked off, or?
Actually, that's probably if you're needing to fill in something a little bit more, give a little bit more information. For example, if it's tardy, you don't really need a whole lot more information about that. On the other hand, you may have other behaviors, or you may need to specify. For example, inappropriate language. If it's sexually harassing language versus, that's the coolest effing car I've seen all week, and effing is the effing other word, is effing this, effing that. So you're going to give a little bit more information. Yes, Steve?
So this is a point where a lot of people will combine behaviors together because the child does all of these things, but they don't realize that each behavior has a function, and if they group together behaviors that have different functions, their plan's not going to be effective.
Right.
So it's best to go, typically I will say, pick the one that causes you the most time as a starting point.
Yep. And you can start looking for how to group, if you need to, by when they occur, they co-occur. So if you know that it always happens in math class and there's a constellation of behaviors that all occur together, then you can say it's probably safe to work with them together. But if they're happening individually at different times, then look at the things that cause the most concern. Now there's also another way to look at this, and I want to be cautious in how I say this. If you have a staff or staff member who is reluctant to do this, and their buy-in is fairly low, do not choose the behavior that is most difficult to change. Choose something that you think you can be effective with and get some momentum with the adult. What you're now talking about is a behavior support plan that the real goal is to help the adult get on board with bigger interventions. So we choose something small, work through it, choose something bigger and work through it. Now that's not always possible, is it? Because you may have something, if it's physically unsafe, that's not even an option. Okay, let's go through a couple of other things here in our last few minutes. Want to talk a little bit about of some of the data collection piece that you may look at beyond this. So, broad information, there's a whole bunch of information that we may want to draw into this. These kinds of things, and you can go through this, this is all stuff we've basically alluded to before. Time of day, patterns of high frequency and low frequency, what, classes or activities, etc. And you're going to build those into your model. Before you start here, though, these are some things you might want to ask. Are the behavioral expectations in this setting clear? If you walk into a classroom where it's hard to guess what the routine is, you can't tell what the teacher's asking them to do, what's expected, it is going to be very, very difficult to create a behavior support plan with clear expectations for the student. Does the student understand the behavior is inappropriate? This goes to that piece of cognitive impairment at some level. When we talk about, does it matter if the student has mental retardation? Yes, if that mental retardation makes it difficult for them to understand what you're asking and to understand appropriateness, you're going to need to back up a little bit. You're going to need to look at a different support plan. Can the student control the behavior in question? I can tell you that there are many times I've seen teachers talk about stopping verbal or physical tics of kids with Tourette syndrome. I know that the literature talks about doing that, but I'm not a big fan of that. Does the student have the skills to perform the desired behavior? Assessing strengths as well as weaknesses, and doing rule-outs, physical issues, medical issues, and other things that may be causing the behavior other than simply meeting needs. Okay. When you look at going through sources of information, when you get beyond doing this facts, you may need to collect more information, and one of the places that you might want to do that is a records review. There is something called the SARS that Hill Walker developed, the School Archival Record Search. That's a structured pattern. You may just look through it more informally, and these are some things that you can collect out of a school records review. When you do information collection through interviews, it's great to have multiple sources of information, multiple informants. The more sources of information you can have, the more we can triangulate in, come together and point in the same direction at the same look. Multiple settings. It is best if you have a structured format. People who are really good at this can do it without the facts, but they're still asking the same information. It just creates a structure. It's good to avoid technical language, and you want to validate the concerns of the person being interviewed, whether it's a parent or a teacher. Express that you understand that this is probably very frustrating or scary for them. So, another question you're going to want to look at in this is the can-do, will-do piece. When you look at a student who is not doing the desired behavior, the question is, can they do it? If not, that's a different intervention than they can do it but don't. The can-do, will-do is a really important one. When you describe behavior, whether it's academic or social behavior, be very careful about talking about can do, and really talk about what they do or do not do. Okay? So this is, they don't turn in the homework, as opposed to they refuse to turn in their homework. The difference may be subtle, but the difference is really important, because if all we know is that they don't turn in the homework, I'm not really sure whether it's because they can't do it or they choose not to do it. Okay. So we've gone through the facts here, and now let's talk about real briefly here about observational methods. There's a number of direct observational ways to do this. One is a narrative recording, one is an ABC recording, and then we can go into some frequency, duration, and interval recording. Now, most of you are not going to be doing this at a deeper level, but I want you to have some basics of it to see where this is. A narrative recording is simply, you go in and you start writing what you see. It's as simple as that. You get in, you say, my observation started at 10 a.m. and ran to 10:15, and you just start making notes about what happened. Now, I will oftentimes circle the problem or inappropriate behaviors as I see it. That just makes it easy for me to pick out the antecedents and consequences. This is most appropriate when you have no idea what you're looking for. When the teacher just says, I'm just so frustrated, this kid is just really squirrely and I don't know what to do, and you go, what does squirrely mean? I don't know, they're just all over everywhere doing all sorts of stuff. Well, let me take a look and just see what I see, and you can't get them nailed down. Now, what does that build to? It builds to an ABC recording, which is you're looking specifically for the antecedents, the behavior, and the consequences. If you know what the behavior is, but the teacher is not capable of really describing well or accurately what happens before and after, what we're going to do is do an antecedent behavior consequence graph. You're going to write here, as soon as you see the behavior, you'll have, and actually in many cases what I will do is I will have the behavior described here on another line. I will compact this and I'll just mark an X as soon as I see the behavior, and I'll go over here and write what I saw happen right before it, and then I'll write exactly what happened after it. The teacher asked Dale to get up and do math on the board. Dale, and I already know what this is, Dale starts making silly comments or stands up, and the teacher gets into an argument with Dale and says, you know what, we've had this same discussion, I told you to be ready for class. And I'm going to describe this discussion just really briefly over here. I now have an antecedent behavior consequence or an ABC analysis or recording started. Okay. Frequency recording. Frequency recording is simply a matter of a check mark. It's simply saying it happened. So when it comes to talkouts in class, bing, talkout number 1. Sherry gave you guys some counters. This is the one you keep in your pocket or keep on your desk or clipboard or whatever, and you just reach over and click it each time that happens. And you can say during first period, between 9 and 10, whatever it is, it happened 34 times. You're simply recording how many times it happened. Okay? This is most useful for behaviors that happen where you know when they stop and start. This would not be useful for a temper tantrum kind of behavior in the largest scope of the term, right? I mean, if this is something that sort of builds and it gets bigger and bigger and lasts for a while, it doesn't happen enough, probably frequency enough, and really what you're looking at is more intensity and duration. Okay? Scatter plots. Scatter plots are a way to sort of see where things bunch up in time or group in time. So in this, and you can get this off of, it actually may be part of the facts packet, but you can get it off pbis.org, is this has the same thing. The time that you've put into your activities on your facts, you can block it out, you can look at the behaviors, and during the blocks of time, you can just mark which behaviors, which times. And what you'll start finding is you'll start seeing groups of things. You'll see where it groups together in time or on days of the week. And you're looking for those groupings. How many of you use Swiss or something like it in your schools to look at office discipline referrals? And so you know what it means to say, you can look at time of day and see if it happens first period or right before lunch or during lunch. You're starting to look for places it groups in time. Duration. Duration is simply looking at how long something lasts. If you have a student that goes to aggressive incidents, duration is you watch it escalate, it lasted 20 minutes where they went off and they were storming around, fist clenched, punching the wall, tearing up books and papers, etc. Now we can start looking at how can we decrease the duration, how can we decrease intensity, etc. 3 quick types of recording, and then we're going to come back and talk about this in the beginning of day 3, is this is looking at whole interval, partial interval, or momentary time sampling. This is probably going to be done by somebody who has nothing other to do than observe. So this is when somebody can come into your room. This is not going to be something a teacher is likely to do. Can in some simple cases. Whole interval is you specify what blocks of time, and you say, did it occur during the whole time? Did it occur at any point in time during that block? And then looking at momentary time sampling is, I'm going to look at 10:30, and at 10:30, if they're doing it, I mark it. Okay. So as you look at this, we're going to be looking at some of those things for observational methods to go with and support your functional assessment. So what am I asking you to do as you walk away today? What I'd like you to do is complete 2 facts. Take your cases that you had the case studies on and complete the facts, A, and as necessary, B, to go with it. Bring any of your other data that you've collected on this case and bring a hypothesis statement. If you can do and want to do a hypothesis statement, that's fine. We'll work more on that on day 3. Okay? So do the facts, complete the facts, parts A and B, for at least 2 of your cases. Any other data that you've collected, and if you want to do a hypothesis statement from that, that would be great. Questions about the assignment? Okay. There is an evaluation form that Steve will be... No? Is that... Oh, okay.
Your handout, you might want some more.
Oh, okay. There are more case study handouts and some blanks there. You already have your evaluation form. So if you would fill those out, that would be great. On day 3, which will be January 26th is what comes to mind, something like that. I'll see you back and we'll continue on.